At dawn on April 1, 1945, the island of Okinawa woke to an ominous silence. There was no dramatic beach resistance, no immediate clash of steel and fire. Instead, the calm felt wrong. Beneath the hills, inside limestone caves and underground tunnels, tens of thousands of Japanese soldiers waited. They knew this battle would decide the fate of Japan itself. There would be no retreat, no surrender, and for many, no survival. What followed became the bloodiest battle of the Pacific War and one of the most harrowing chapters in human history. To understand how the world reached the brink of nuclear annihilation, one must first understand Okinawa. Okinawa was not just another island, it was the last defensive barrier between the Allied forces and the Japanese mainland. Located only about 350 miles from Kyushu, it offered airfields that could support direct bombing raids on Japan. Both sides understood its importance. For the United States, capturing Okinawa would pave the way for an invasion of Japan. For Japan, losing Okinawa would mean the war was effectively over.
By early 1945, Japan was exhausted. Its navy had been largely destroyed, its air force depleted, and its cities reduced to ashes by relentless bombing. Yet surrender was unthinkable to the military leadership. The Bushido Code, emphasizing honor and death over defeat, still dominated strategic thinking. Japan believed that by inflicting massive casualties on the Americans at Okinawa, it might force the Allies into negotiating a more favorable peace. The responsibility for defending Okinawa fell to General Mitsuru Ushijima and his chief of staff, General Isamu Cho. Together, they devised a strategy unlike previous island defenses. Instead of fighting the Americans on the beaches, they would allow them to land almost unopposed, then draw them into a brutal war of attrition inland. The island would become a killing ground. On April 1, 1945, more than 60,000 American troops landed on Okinawa as part of Operation Iceberg. It was the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific theater. The beaches were eerily quiet. Many American soldiers suspected a trap, and they were right. As U.S. forces moved inland, Japanese artillery, mortars, and machine guns opened fire from hidden positions. The battle had begun. The terrain favored the defenders. Okinawa was riddled with caves, ridges, and narrow valleys. The Japanese constructed an elaborate network of tunnels connecting command posts, supply depots, and firing positions. When one bunker was destroyed, soldiers simply retreated underground and re-emerged elsewhere. Progress for the Americans was painfully slow, measured in yards rather than miles. One of the fiercest areas of fighting was the Shuri Line, a heavily fortified defensive position stretching across southern Okinawa. Here, the Japanese made their stand. Day after day, American troops assaulted the line under constant fire. Rain turned the battlefield into a sea of mud. Bodies lay unburied. The stench of death hung in the air. Many soldiers later described Okinawa as a vision of hell. As brutal as the ground fighting was, the war at sea and in the air was just as deadly. Desperate to stop the American advance, Japan launched waves of kamikaze attacks against the U.S. Navy. Pilots deliberately crashed their aircraft into ships, turning themselves into human-guided missiles. Between April and June 1945, nearly 2,000 kamikaze pilots attacked Allied vessels. The impact was devastating. More than 30 U.S. ships were sunk and hundreds more were damaged. Sailors watched helplessly as burning aircraft slammed into decks, igniting ammunition and fuel. Casualties mounted rapidly. Okinawa became the deadliest naval battle in American history. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of the battle was the suffering of Okinawan civilians. Unlike many other Pacific islands, Okinawa was heavily populated. About 300,000 civilians lived there at the time. They were trapped between two merciless forces.
Japanese troops often forced civilians to assist them, confiscated their food, or used them as human shields. American bombardments destroyed villages and farmland indiscriminately. Japanese propaganda warned civilians that Americans would torture and kill them if captured. Terrified families fled into caves where disease and starvation spread rapidly. In some cases, Japanese soldiers ordered civilians to commit suicide rather than surrender. Entire families jumped off cliffs or used grenades to kill themselves. Tens of thousands of civilians died, many by their own hands. As the battle dragged on, American commanders realized the staggering cost of continuing. Casualties soared. By late May, U.S. forces had suffered over 60,000 casualties, including more than 12,000 dead. Japanese losses were even higher. Nearly the entire defending force was wiped out. By June 1945, the Shuri Line had collapsed. General Ushijima retreated south with his remaining troops. On June 22, he committed ritual suicide, signaling the end of organized Japanese resistance on Okinawa. The island was officially declared secure, but at an unimaginable price. In total, the Battle of Okinawa claimed the lives of an estimated 200,000 people. Around half were civilians. It was the single bloodiest battle of the Pacific War. For American leaders, Okinawa was a grim preview of what an invasion of Japan would look like. Military planners estimated that an invasion of the Japanese mainland could result in hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of casualties on both sides. Japanese civilians, trained to resist with bamboo spears and homemade weapons, were expected to fight to the death. The question facing the Allies was no longer whether Japan could be defeated, but how many lives it would cost. Okinawa played a crucial role in the decision to use atomic weapons. The battle demonstrated that Japan would not surrender easily and that conventional warfare would result in catastrophic losses. When atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, many American leaders believed they were preventing another Okinawa on a far greater scale. Today, Okinawa remains deeply scarred by the memory of 1945. Memorials dot the island, honoring soldiers and civilians alike. Survivors still tell stories of hiding in caves, of losing entire families, of a time when survival itself seemed impossible. The land that once echoed with gunfire is now peaceful, but the past is never far away. Okinawa 1945 was not just Japan's last stand. It was a turning point that reshaped the modern world. It exposed the true cost of fanaticism, the horror of total war, and the devastating consequences of refusing to accept defeat. More than a battle, it was a warning written in blood, one that humanity can never afford to forget.